Hello, everybody. Just going to give people a second to log on. Welcome to episode 44 of Duke's Download. I'm your host, Duke Mason, and today we have one of the leading entrepreneurs in America, the CEO and founder of GT's Living Foods, GT Dave. Not only is he a friend of mine, he is someone who has made a huge impact on the world and basically is literally single-handedly responsible for bringing kombucha to the U.S. market and to the international market. He's really made a huge difference in the world, and I am a big fan. So we're just going to give him a second to log on. He should be on any minute now. But yeah, we're up to 43 or 44 episodes. So thank you all for the support that you've shown me thus far. I'm planning to keep things moving into 2022 and keep doing episodes. So I'm really, really grateful for the support. Let's just give him a minute here. I see he is on. Perfect. Should be loading. Hey there.
What's up? How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm very excited to talk to you.
No, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Are you in LA at the moment, or are you in Hawaii, or where are you at?
I'm technically in LA. I'm actually in one of our offices.
Oh, wow.
And so it's an interesting office. It was formerly the Lucky Brand Jean
Oh, wow. Yeah.
company. So yeah, so the decor here is not typically something that my company has, but it is one of our sites. So I'm talking to you from one of our locations here in Vernon, California.
Right. I was reading about that earlier. It's like 100,000 square feet. Is that right?
It's a little bit bigger. It's actually 500,000 square feet.
Oh my God. What do I got? That's, I mean,
Hey,
that would be big enough, but 500,000 is, I mean, that's
hey,
crazy.
it's all relative. We're small to the big guys and we're big to the small guys. So it doesn't matter, but it feels good. How are you?
I'm great. No, and I'm so excited to talk to you because I think, obviously not a lot of people know who you are, and obviously a lot of people are familiar and fans of your company. But even I, and of course, having met you before, I knew a lot about you, but there was a lot of stuff I had no idea about. I mean, you have like the most incredible life story and what you've accomplished, considering like, the fact that, as we'll get into, but the fact that you started getting interested in business when you were a teenager and and that you got interested in kombucha because of the personal connection with your parents. No, I was just so excited to chat with you. And I mean, of course, I'll begin just at the beginning. Like, how did you even get interested in business and entrepreneurship, and how did you get interested when you were super young? Like, when did that begin?
Well, it was an interesting journey, to be honest. I never really considered myself a business person or even someone that was business oriented. But I did notice two things early on. One is, and I think this is probably, and I'm not just teeing this up for you, but it might feel that way, is, I grew up a young gay boy in Los Angeles, and, I was very self-aware at a very early age. I think my earliest memory of being gay or being aware that I was gay was probably, I think, about 3 years old. So really young. And, knowing that I felt different, and I felt that I was different. I saw the world different. I was into different things. And so I think through that, I was always a little shy and almost secretive of how much I would reveal about myself. And then, of course, as I got older, that's when I think the bullying came into play, primarily in high school. So I dropped out of high school, and starting my business wasn't, in my mind, starting a business. It was really just trying to create my own world, a world that I could be myself, a world that I didn't have to worry about being judged or being different. And that's really became the catalyst for starting a business. It was the opportunity to essentially architect my own environment that I could almost create the rules.
No, it makes total sense. I mean, I know, like, because you were starting your own business, you didn't have to answer to anybody, right? I mean, I can imagine it was like you were your own boss, you controlled your own destiny. And I think also, and I relate to this, the fact that, I came out when I was 14, and I think it gives you the permission to not go by the regular rules in terms of what you're supposed to do and where you're supposed to go. So no, that makes a lot of sense. And then of course, I read that your parents were fans of kombucha initially, and that was what introduced you to it in the first place. Is that right?
That's exactly right. So, in fact, my parents raised me a vegetarian and raised me on plant-based foods and a lot of medicinal foods, and kombucha was one of them. So, I think I certainly know that through them, they exposed me to that world at such a young age. So, it became the norm. And so, when kombucha entered the household in the early 90s, it really wasn't anything that I or anybody I knew had seen here in the US. It primarily had existed in other parts of the world, like Russia, Japan, and China. But my parents embraced it open arms, like they did a lot of these health foods. And then it really was my mother's battle with breast cancer and her consumption of kombucha throughout her battle of her breast cancer, which really became the catalyst for me to give it a shot. Because I have to be honest that early on, I thought kombucha was weird. I thought it smelled weird, tasted weird, all of that. But it really wasn't until witnessing it help my mother that I was like, all right, this stuff is special and I got to give it a try.
Absolutely. And by the way, I read the fact that you would visit ashrams with your parents when you were a kid. My mom has been going to ashrams in India for 15 years. And so I love that you were raised from a young age with like a spiritual, appreciation of being healthy and both physically and spiritually. But so was that also something that you were interested in, the idea of maybe trying to make that more, make other people more aware of it and trying to introduce that element to other people?
Yes and no. So, I mean, first of all, ashrams and the spiritual, I think, exposure that I experienced at an early age did a lot of things for me. It certainly kind of programmed me that I wanted to do something important with my life, something that really benefited others and really, made the world a better place. But in addition to that, it created this humility and this somewhat groundedness because, growing up in Los Angeles, and I'm sure you can identify, we see a lot, we get somewhat jaded, we get somewhat callous, somewhat even desensitized to what the rest of the world goes through. Whether, going to an ashram, as beautiful as it sounds, to get there, I had to encounter quite a bit of poverty and disease and things that you don't really experience in Los Angeles. And so it really kind of shaped my point of view. And I think made me a better person. And then I think it gave me the tools and the foundation that helped me have the confidence to start a business that was weird and didn't really seem like it was going to be lucrative. But the reward was really less about the financial and really more about the emotional reward that making kombucha gave me and continues to give me.
It's funny funny what you said about how India, because I've never actually been, but my parents have been, my mom's been a million times, and she actually has an animal charity there. And there are so many parallels because also my mom's a vegan and has been super into animal rights and all of that for a long time. So I want you guys to meet at some point. I know
I'd
she
love
would
to.
love that, but also the fact that, yeah, I mean, like India is a place where from what she's told me, there's so many, like, it's either like, immense, wealth and sort of opulence and, and then a lot of poverty too. She calls it like divine chaos. I mean, there's so, like, you see cows in the streets and it's just kind of like a mind blowing place. So I can imagine that it would have, had an impact on you when you were young, and just to experience all those a different world outside of the LA bubble.
Yeah.
But even practically, like how did you even go about starting your business? And, I mean, I know I read that, you started in your bedroom basically, and being different, not pretending to be different employees or whatever, like, trying to be a young person who's trying to be taken seriously. And I mean, what was that experience like and how did you do it?
It was funny. It was in many ways similar to being gay. Is I felt like I was doing something that felt right, but I didn't want to be judged by others. And so I think I consciously or unconsciously started to adopt more than one identity to kind of create multiple layers between the product and me, because I was really honestly worried that someone was going to, like, quote unquote, find me out and be like, wait, you're making this from your parents' kitchen. You're just a kid. This is wrong. This is illegal. We're going to shut you down. Because, again, I was kind of, after my experiences in high school, it felt like no good deed goes unpunished, that they're always going to come for you or something like that. So I made a conscious effort to protect myself and my brand as much as possible. So in addition to having multiple identities, I also, was obsessive about quality. I certainly was obsessive about food safety, because I never ever wanted anyone to doubt the integrity of my products, nor did I want anybody to think that I wasn't, making this in a legitimate way, which is frequently something that can happen, especially when you're just a teenager making a product, right? People tend to dismiss you. So I essentially became obsessed with proving people wrong, or making sure people never even thought of that.
Mm-hmm. No, and I mean, I know this is kind of an esoteric question, but there are very few people I can think of. And actually, I had this conversation with our mutual friend, Eric Morse, when I saw him at your Halloween event. Like, we were just saying, like, there are very few people I can think of who've done what you've done. The fact that you had like this vision and literally from scratch, from your childhood bedroom, created an empire. I mean, like, I know it's kind of an abstract thing, but like, how did you find the courage and the vision and sort of the tools that you needed to be basically self-made and like, how did you figure that out? Where did those qualities come from?
Well, I mean, I think first of all, I felt that I had nothing to lose. So, I think a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs, what we tend to all have in common is this desire to take a risk, and this desire to take chances, right? But I think the fact that I was bullied and kind of dropped out of high school, I really had in my mind nothing to lose. So that was one. That gave me kind of the confidence and the conviction. And then, as I said earlier, it really is wanting to make a great product. And I believe, and this is still one of my philosophies today, is that if you sincerely root your intentions in something that's good and positive and altruistic and all of that, it really kind of paves the way for you. And you just stay on that path, and eventually success will come your way. Because what I also noticed is that I was very fortunate early in my life, and even to this day, that a lot of people would come out of nowhere to help me and give me guidance and direct me and give me, advice and stuff like that, completely unsolicited. And in retrospect, I think one of the main reasons why is they could tell that I was going about it with a really sincere heart. I wasn't trying to get rich. I was just trying to do something that I believed in. And I think that can be very infectious. I think people really become somewhat motivated by witnessing, especially a young person, but anybody for that matter, being passionate and really standing up for what they believe in. And that really, in many ways, became my guiding light.
Totally. No, and it sort of ties into my next question, which is like, was living like a purpose-driven life, like, and being altruistic, and like, were you always socially conscious in terms of what was going on in the world? And like, I mean, obviously, the nutritional system in America, and and our emphasis on instead of preventive care or taking care of yourself, the way our whole system is structured. Is that something you were interested in either a socially or culturally or political way, or was that sort of just a byproduct, the fact that you had that impact in that regard?
No, it's not a coincidence that my early upbringing certainly had insights into those two subject matters. One, I think, is because my parents raised me vegetarian and raised me to believe that food can be your medicine as well as your poison. There was this constant conversation in my parents' household about the Western versus the Eastern way of living, thinking, and of course, more importantly, eating. And so that was something that I was very aware of. My father, even to this day, always talks about, the U.S. diet is that's very sickly. It's not, very nutrient focused. It's more taste focused. Luckily, that's changing. And then in addition to that, there's a spiritual aspect where, when you go to these ashrams, or when you even have just a faith in candidly anything, it doesn't have to be an ashram in India. It could be Jesus, it can be Buddha, it can be any particular faith that really focuses on something that's bigger than you. With that, you live your life with compassion, and you want to do the right thing and you want to help others. And so I think those two kind of intersected in my world, and that, helped me be what I ultimately became.
Totally. I mean, are there, on a broader level, but are there specific disciplines or things or ways of living and doing your business that you would say have made you so successful? I mean, both because you're a type A person all around. I mean, I really admire that. Something I'm working on myself. But like, are there certain lessons and sort of things you live with on a daily basis that you would say and help you, keep things that way?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of my daily practices is to meditate. And meditation, to me, I think meditation can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. But for me, it's really just a state of reflection and a state of setting your intentions going forward. And the two can happen back to back or almost simultaneously. So that in many ways is how I take inventory of my actions, my behaviors, things that I've done, people I've associated with. And I really ask myself, like, was that a proud moment? Like, would you do that all over again? Or would you do it differently? Or is there anything about that you would change? And I think that awareness in many ways allows you to continue to evolve, but more importantly, to be aware of your actions, Excuse me. But
My
yeah,
dad actually wrote in the comments, what form of medication? Medication.
medication.
Meditation is a form of medication.
It
But
is. You should make a
yeah,
t-shirt.
my parents are both TM people too.
Yeah, I mean, listen, meditation is so important, and candidly, the most important thing you can do in our current lives, because right now with phones and gadgets and devices and all this stuff, I think our brains are just being overwhelmed with information and emotion and FOMO and all that stuff. But I think it's important to, almost like you let your computer rest at night, it's important that you allow your mind to rest. And in order to really, at least in my opinion, achieve that full state of rest, is you almost have to slightly turn off all the apps, all the programs, which in many ways are your thoughts, and create somewhat of a neutral, clean slate that then makes your body and your mind ready to receive more information and think more clearly the next day. So meditation's, I mean, it's solid gold in my opinion.
Total, absolutely. And part of the conversation we were just having about, giving back to the world. And, one thing I'm so excited to see the fact that you have the new scholarship, the Synergy Scholarship, which I think is amazing. Maybe you can share a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for bringing it up. It is something I'm very proud of. It goes back to what we were just talking about is, doing good, not only just for yourself, but doing good for others. And the Synergy Scholarship was essentially born out of this desire to spread love and spread opportunity. I mean, I was very fortunate to be born into the world that I was born into, with two parents that were relatively well off in Los Angeles, that gave me education and gave me the resources to live my dreams. And then kombucha came in and was kind of the bow on that package. But I realized a lot of people aren't that fortunate. They might have some of those opportunities, but maybe not all of them. And I certainly believe that there is, like I was, the young gay boy that was being bullied, or the young gay boy that didn't know where his future was, which is who I was in my early years. I believe that people like that are out there, and I want to lend a helping hand for them. I really, I think, as I said earlier, a lot of people helped me early on, and I wouldn't be where I'm at and who I am today without them. And so I think it's important, because I believe in karma, to kind of pay it forward and to make sure that I'm not the last receiver of these gifts and these kindness and the compassion that people showed me, that it came to me and then it will flow through me and it will go to the next person. So that's really what the scholarship is about. It's really about giving opportunity to those that don't have it and allowing them to seize an opportunity that perhaps they don't feel is in front of them just yet.
No, I think it's amazing. And I think the fact that you focus on, up and coming or young people who want to be entrepreneurs themselves, especially because in the business world, there aren't many people like you, I mean, there are only only a few examples I can think of, like Tim Cook, or I mean, literally, there's a handful of openly LGBTQ business leaders. So I think the fact that you're helping to change that, and giving that opportunity to other people. I mean, do you feel not lonely, but do you ever feel like you're largely alone in terms of being a prominent gay business person?
Yeah, I certainly do. I mean, as you just said, there's not a lot of openly gay or LGBTQ plus individuals in, I guess, what we'll call the corporate world, right? And I said this recently for Pride Month earlier this year, is that, I think gay is obviously becoming more and more acceptable, which I think is incredibly wonderful and fantastic. But along with that, and this I think is something that happens to any minority, whether that's your sexual orientation or the color of your skin or the country you were born in, we sometimes get pigeonholed. And so I think, right now our community is at risk of that, of, people think of us as, oh, they're great hairstylists, or they're great, makeup artists, or they're great whatever, but they don't really think of us as a business leader, a leader that doesn't necessarily have to exist in a world where it's fashion or makeup or art. We can be the suit, the tie, the serious, the board meeting leader or the CEO, and we don't have to participate in some of the other things that I think are associated frequently with our culture and community. And so I really think there's an opportunity to rewrite that story and then really showcase to people that are in our community, and more importantly, outside of our community, that we're dynamic. And then that's why I love the rainbow, which is obviously the kind of iconic aspect of the LGBTQ plus community. Is I truly believe that we are so many different colors of the rainbow. And that's beautiful. And I think that should be celebrated and encouraged. And it's not even about who you choose to love or who you choose to have sex with. It's really about your personality. And I think that conversation extends even outside of our community. And it's a bigger conversation, which I think is really special.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, the rainbow symbol has always been also about, I mean, not like you just said, not just even the LGBT community, but also including our allies, and
Yes.
it's all about diversity and just across the board. And I think no, and I think absolutely. I mean, you have the people who are more, on the beauty or whatever you want to call it realm, and that's great and more artistic. But then you have people in the gay people in the military and in politics and in business, and so no, I think that's something that's really important to remember. One thing I was reading, I know that you just changed in the last few years, or maybe last few months, from GT's Kombucha to GT's Living Foods, and so maybe you can talk a little about why you did that and what your plans are in terms of branching out.
Yeah, I mean, the name change is in many ways very similar to what we're talking about right now. Is I think it's important for people, brands, and companies to never feel that they're being pigeonholed. And so, obviously kombucha is the first product I bottled. I started my company in 1995 just making kombucha, and that's essentially all we made for the first 15 years. But then, I started to do some reflection, and I thought, well, is this it? Is this all I stand for? And obviously the answer was no. And what I truly stand for is health. What I truly stand for is food as medicine. And so instead of limiting my brand and my company to just kombucha, I really wanted to extend it to these living foods, these foods that support life, provide life, and make you feel more alive. Because honestly, I think that's what food's intended to do. And I think through the name change, it really created this almost stake in the ground of this is who we are, this is who we stand for, which is important because as companies grow, you can so easily lose your way. So it's almost important to know what you stand for, because then it informs what you stand against. And I believe, a lot of brands try to stand for everything, and those that do really stand for nothing. And I don't want that to happen to me or my company, because it is a slippery slope that you can fall into.
I mean, I just think it's amazing that it's been over 25 years since you started your company. Do you ever
going on
get
27.
tired? I mean, I mean, I know I've read about this. I know you've had many offers to buy huge corporations to buy you out, but are you interested? Do you think you're going to keep going for the rest of your life? What is your plan, your big plan in terms of in your head, your vision?
Yeah, I mean, never is a big word. But I can only speak to right now, because I'm the type of guy that like to live in the moment. I like to, be present in the day and think a little bit out, but I don't want to get too obsessive with where I'm going to be 20 years from now.
Right.
In many ways, again, this is how I live my life professionally and personally, is I want to make sure I'm happy. And through that happiness comes to, I enjoy what I'm doing. is it giving me an emotional, almost visceral reward that makes me feel that I found my purpose and I'm staying true to my purpose. And making kombucha and other products that we make and helping people and improving their health never gets tired. It always feels special, especially again in a world just like with this pandemic that we continue to go through, is we continue to get reminded that your health is your wealth, that if you don't have it, you don't have anything else. And that's something that I personally believe. So I've made all the money that I know what to do with. And my company helps me get up in the morning. It helps me feel very fulfilled and inspired by the things that I do. But having said that, there's other things that I want to do that may involve me selling the company, or better yet, may involve me keeping the company and using it as an opportunity to fund and finance other ideas. Like, for instance, I have some political aspirations. I'm thinking of getting into politics at some point because being a California native, I love the state of California, but I don't love what's currently happening to it.
Right.
After witnessing our last president, I realized there's a lot of narrow-mindedness in the world and a lot of division. And I think it's okay for people to have differences of opinion, but I think it's how you manage that is through love and through kindness and through compassion, because it's okay if we disagree. It just can't come from hatred and anger. So, and also I want to, like the scholarship, continue to further education. I think the U.S. school system's somewhat broken. I think we don't pay our teachers enough. I don't think we have a healthy kind of formula, if you will, of how kids go from, being, in first grade all the way through university. I mean, that's honestly one of the reasons why I also left high school, is I didn't feel it was nourishing my creative and entrepreneur mind. So there's a lot of things there that I want to get into, but most important is I want to do something that I would never regret. And I think selling my company and running the risk of it getting into the wrong hands or somebody wrecking it would be something that I think I would regret for the rest of my life. And regret is not something I enjoy. And so I want to really stay away from anything like that.
I think that's so cool though and exciting. Like I literally was like, when you said you might run, you were maybe not. I'm up with words in your mouth. You say you maybe run for office, but political aspirations of some sort. I think that's really exciting. I think you'd be a great person to do that. So
Thank
me,
you.
I'm very into politics. So I think that would be I'm in. Whenever if you decide to do it, I'm in. I'll be all in. But and by the way, my dad, who just left a comment, because he also dropped out of Beverly High.
Oh, no way.
Obviously a lot before you, but it's funny. Actually, both of my parents. Well, my mom graduated, I think. But another example of people who who didn't conform, who dropped out of high school, but still went on to do, some pretty cool things. My dad actually, okay, there's a final question. My dad also commented, what would you say is the most influential book that you've ever read that has had an impact on you?
It's interesting. There's really two books, and they're not that amazing of books, but it really was at the time in my life when I read them. So I was still a teenager. It was actually, I think, one of the last books that I was assigned to in school before I began my entrepreneurial journey. And they're very different books, by the way. One is The Great Gatsby, which, The Great Gatsby was really important to me because it had somewhat this fantasy of this, Gatsby creating this world for himself. And through this world, he created a lot of happiness for others, that just being able to watch people be happy through these, lavish parties that he would throw is what all he needed. He didn't need the fame or the popularity. He just enjoyed watching people have a good time. And I think in many ways, I have naturally emulated that, or at least that's something that I believe in my personal life. And then the other book, which is again very different, is a book called Siddhartha. And Siddhartha is an interesting book. It's not that hard of a read, but it's really about this young man and his journey to ultimately discover enlightenment. And it's something that I believe we all go through. So it's a very relatable story where we come into this world, we maybe have been blessed with something special, whether it's, regardless, the environment that we were born into is unique or special. But through that, we're still wondering, like, is this it? Is there something more? you know, why was I born into this world this way? What's the meaning of life? You know, all that stuff. And then the temptations start to come of sex and drugs and popularity and all these other things. But at some point, and this is the kind of the premise of the book, it really teaches you something called the death to your ego.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's something that was really heavy to me at the time, because the word death and killing something was something obviously that I was very sensitive to. But really what I ultimately understood and currently understand about that is it's really about taking your pride, your ego, the self, right? The things that I think are in many ways the source of a lot of egotistical thinking and pride and arrogance and narcissism, and setting it aside and just being a participant in this world, being a global citizen, and being a warrior of love and light. And that's, again, something that I practice to this day, which, no surprise, continues to help me run my business and run my life.
Wow. Well, I mean, you're an amazing guy and very inspiring. And so I really appreciate, I think I and all the people watching will get a lot out of this. So thank you, seriously. And for those of you who are interested, I'll put the more information on the Synergy Scholarship in the caption of the video. But GT, thank you so much. Really.
No, you're welcome. Thank you. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Hope to see you soon, and all the best to you and your husband and the kids. And thank you so much. Really.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Have a good day. See you
God
later.
bless.
Bye. God bless. Bye.